I found out where I was sitting when the coordinator paused over her clipboard like she'd made a mistake, and then didn't correct it. The reception was already loud on the other side of the glass doors. I could hear the DJ testing the mic, the soft thump of bass, someone laughing too hard at a joke I couldn't catch. The hallway I was standing in smelled like lilies and disinfectant, that sharp, clean smell venues use to pretend nothing messy ever happens there. The coordinator looked at me again. "You're Maya Harlan?" "Yeah," I said. Her eyes dropped back to the paper. "You're listed for corridor seating?" I waited for the punchline. The correction? Anything. Instead, she angled her pen toward a small folding table set up near the service doors, tucked beside a pair of rolling bins and a stack of extra chair covers. The bins were covered, but not sealed. You could still catch that faint, sour-sweet smell of old food and melted ice. "Right there," she said, still polite, still professional. Like this was normal. For a second, I didn't move. I just stood with my gift bag, held carefully in both hands, as if it could anchor me. I'd wrapped the box the night before in my apartment, smoothing the paper until my fingertips hurt, tying the ribbon tighter than it needed to be. I wore a deep burgundy dress I'd bought on sale and steamed myself in the bathroom because I didn't want a single detail to look like I hadn't tried. I tried. That was my thing. Inside the ballroom, the chandeliers were already glowing. I could see the reflection of candlelight in the windows, the lake beyond it, dark and still. My sister had chosen this place in New Hampshire, an expensive lakeside lodge that smelled like pine, citrus cleaner, and money. Guests took photos of the entrance sign like it proved something about them. And somehow, my place in all of it was out here. I walked to the folding table because I didn't know what else to do. My heels clicked once on the tile, then went quiet. I set the gift down gently, like I was placing something fragile on a shelf, and took the seat that wobbled when I shifted my weight. Through the glass, I saw my mother adjusting her necklace with the small, precise movements she used when she was trying to stay composed. My father stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking past everything like he was watching a weather forecast. And my sister, Sienna, was in white, moving from group to group with that easy confidence that makes other people lean in. When she laughed, people laughed back right away. No pause, no hesitation. My phone buzzed once. A text from my mom that had come earlier that morning flashed in my head like it was still on the screen. "Please, Maya, no drama today. It's Sienna's day. No drama. Don't make noise. Don't take up space. Be the kind of person no one has to manage." Growing up, Sienna was the bright one. The family story had a clear main character. She had trophies on shelves and framed photos in the hallway. I had decent grades and quiet habits. I learned early that being fine meant being overlooked, and being overlooked meant being useful. My mom used to call me low maintenance, like it was a compliment. My dad liked to say I was independent. They both meant the same thing. I didn't require attention, so they didn't give it. The last time I'd been in a room with all of them for more than an hour was a holiday dinner a few years back. I still remember the smell of burnt pastry and lemon cleaner. Sienna hadn't come that year. She was traveling with a boyfriend at the time, and the house felt strangely calm, without her orbit pulling everyone into place. That night, my mom asked me to grab something from her bedroom. "The extra candles," she said, "in the top drawer." I opened the drawer and saw the small leather notebook she kept tucked beneath scarves and old receipts. It wasn't locked. The edges were worn, softened from being handled so often. I flipped it open without thinking much about it. Every page began with my sister's name. Sienna's first day of school, Sienna's favorite song, Sienna's acceptance letter, Sienna's first apartment. Little details written carefully like my mother was building proof that she'd done motherhood right. I kept turning pages, waiting to find my name somewhere. A birthday, a memory, anything. There was nothing. When I asked her about it later, she smiled the way people smile when they don't want to admit they've been caught. "You never needed that kind of attention," she said. "You were always fine, easy, convenient." Sitting in that hallway, looking in at the ballroom, I thought about that notebook again, about the difference between being forgotten and being erased. I loosened my grip on the gift bag and inhaled slowly through my nose. I didn't cry. I didn't walk in and demand an explanation. I didn't create a scene they could blame on me later. I just sat there, listening to the music swell and dip, watching strangers toast my sister's happiness through a pane of glass. And inside my purse, beneath my wallet and keys, the small silver box felt heavier than it should have. Not because of what it was, because of what I'd tucked inside it. Then I waited. The hallway didn't stay empty for long. Staff moved in and out through the service door beside me, rolling carts of glassware and ice buckets that rattled softly over the tile. Every time the door swung open, a slice of the ballroom spilled out, music, laughter, the warm glow of chandeliers, then disappeared again when it closed. I stayed still, hands folded over my purse, back straight. The chair creaked once when I shifted, then settled. From where I sat, I could see almost everything without being seen myself. Couples adjusting jackets, a bridesmaid kicking off her heels under the table, my mother leaning in to whisper something to my sister, her hand resting on Sienna's arm a moment longer than necessary. That had always been the pattern. Physical reassurance, constant alignment. I told myself I'd made it this far without expecting anything different. I'd driven nearly 4 hours alone that morning, leaving my apartment before sunrise, the city still quiet and damp from overnight rain. I'd rehearsed polite conversations in my head, planned where to stand during photos, how long to stay before it would be acceptable to leave. I hadn't planned for this. The gift bag rested against my ankle. I nudged it slightly, just enough to remind myself it was there. The silver paper was unwrinkled. The ribbon lay flat and neat, the bow centered perfectly. I'd learned over the years that presentation mattered, even when presents didn't. Inside the ballroom, the DJ's voice rose as he announced the wedding party. Applause followed, then more applause, louder this time. Someone cheered, glasses clinked. Then the laughter changed. I didn't notice it at first, just a subtle shift in tone. But I felt it before I understood it. The sound sharpened, edged with something familiar. Anticipation, attention, pulling in one direction. I looked up. Sienna was walking toward the hallway. She moved with her bouquet in one hand, the other lifting the hem of her dress just enough to keep it from brushing the floor. Her veil trailed behind her, catching the light, soft and deliberate. She didn't look rushed. She didn't look confused. She looked intentional. She stopped just short of the doorway, where the ballroom light cut off and the hallway shadow began. For a second, her reflection doubled in the glass. 2 versions of her, one framed by chandeliers and admiration, the other standing in the cooler light, closer to me. "Well," she said, glancing at the folding table, then back at my face. "This makes sense." I waited. She tilted her head slightly, the way she used to when we were kids, and she was about to say something that would earn her a laugh. "Looks like they finally figured out where you belong." The words were light, casual, almost lazy. I felt them land anyway. I blinked once. What's that supposed to mean? Her smile tightened at the corners. "Guess you don't really count." She said it the way people say facts, like pointing out the weather. For a moment, I said nothing. Not because I didn't have a response, but because I'd learned silence unsettled her more than argument ever did. I watched her expression closely, saw the brief flicker of irritation when I didn't react the way she wanted. Behind her, a photographer called out, "Bride, we need you back inside." She didn't turn. She wanted this moment acknowledged. "There's always been space," I said quietly, keeping my voice even. "You're the one who keeps shrinking it." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, come on! Not everything is about you. This is my wedding. You could at least pretend to be happy." I let out a breath, slow and controlled. "You made sure I couldn't even sit in the room. What exactly am I supposed to be celebrating?" For a second, the smile slipped. Just a fraction, enough to notice. Then she straightened, lifting her chin. "You always twist things. Mom was right. You make everything difficult." The word mom landed heavier than the rest. I pictured that notebook again. Page after page of careful attention that had never included me. "I'm not difficult," I said. "I just don't ignore things anymore." She rolled her eyes. "You sound bitter. Honestly, Maya, nobody here needs your approval." She turned away before I could respond, her dress sweeping back into the ballroom, the light swallowing her up again. The door closed softly behind her. I sat there for a few seconds longer, staring at the empty doorway. The music resumed its rhythm, smooth and confident, as if nothing had interrupted it. I reached down and picked up the gift bag. The box inside was cool against my fingers through the paper. Solid. Real. I traced the ribbon once, then slowly slipped the bag into my purse. If they didn't want me inside, that was fine, but I wasn't leaving this behind. Then I stood up. Standing up changed something. Not in the room, nothing inside the ballroom shifted yet, but in me. The folding chair scraped softly against the tile as I pushed it back into place. I smoothed the front of my dress, more out of habit than nerves, and adjusted the strap of my purse on my shoulder. The hallway felt colder now, or maybe I was just more aware of it. I walked toward the reception table near the ballroom entrance, where a cluster of cards and boxes had been arranged in neat rows. The wedding planner stood nearby, focused on straightening place cards and checking her watch. She didn't look up as I approached. I moved calmly, no rushing, no hesitation. I set my purse down just long enough to take out the silver-wrapped box. The paper caught the light, clean and understated, among the larger, more extravagant gifts. I placed it carefully on top of the stack labeled for Sienna and her fiancé, aligning it so the bow faced forward. My handwriting on the tag was steady, clear. I didn't linger. As I turned away, I caught my reflection in the glass again. Same posture, same composed face. If anyone glanced my way, they would have seen nothing unusual. Just another guest moving through the space. Outside, the air hit me sharply. The lake stretched out behind the venue, dark and still, reflecting the soft glow of string lights along the railing. Somewhere inside, applause rose again. Probably the first dance. I didn't turn back to check. I walked toward the parking lot, my heels crunching lightly over gravel, the sound oddly grounding. Each step felt measured, deliberate, like I was following instructions I'd already memorized. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been sitting in a cafe near my office during my lunch break when I ran into someone I recognized but couldn't place right away. She worked with Sienna years ago, back when my sister still lived in the city. We'd exchanged small talk, weather, work, the usual. Then she hesitated, fingers tightening around her coffee cup. "Can I ask you something kind of uncomfortable?" she'd said. I hadn't answered right away. I just nodded. She told me Sienna talked, a lot, bragged mostly, about how easy things were going, about how people believed what she wanted them to believe, about her fiancé, how trusting he was, how quickly he'd folded when she cried or played uncertain. "I thought she was joking," the woman said, "but then she showed me messages." She hadn't sent them to me right away. Not until later. Not until she realized the wedding was coming up and something about it didn't sit right. When the screenshots arrived in my inbox, I read them slowly. Dates, times, casual cruelty dressed up as confidence, plans laid out plainly, like a checklist. I didn't respond emotionally. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't warn Sienna. I saved everything. Back in the parking lot, I reached my car and unlocked it. The interior light flicked on, brief and warm. I sat down, closed the door, and let the quiet settle around me. Through the windshield, I could still see the ballroom windows glowing. Silhouettes moved inside, smooth and celebratory, like a scene sealed off from consequence. I rested my hands on the steering wheel but didn't start the engine yet. Step 1, I thought, had already happened. I'd removed myself. Step 2 had been preparation. Step 3 didn't require me to be present at all. My phone buzzed once in the cup holder. A missed call, then another. I didn't look at the screen. I sat there, listening to the faint music drifting across the water, steady and distant. Somewhere inside, a ribbon was being untied. Paper was being folded back. Words were being read for the first time by someone who mattered. I didn't need to see it. I started the car. As I pulled out of the lot, the sound of the venue faded behind me, replaced by the low hum of tires on pavement. The road ahead was dark, familiar, uncomplicated. For the first time that day, my breathing felt even. And then, from somewhere behind me, cutting across the lake and the trees, I heard it, a scream, sharp, sudden, unmistakable. I didn't slow down, I just kept driving. I didn't check my mirrors. The scream echoed once, then vanished into the night, swallowed by distance and the steady sound of the road. I kept both hands on the wheel, eyes forward, letting the highway lines pull me away from the lodge 1 clean mile at a time. I knew better than to imagine specifics. I didn't need a picture. I already understood the sequence. Inside, the gift table would have become a small stage without anyone planning it. Someone curious, someone helpful, a suggestion made casually. Let's open a few now. That's how these things always start. No intent, just momentum. What followed wouldn't require emotion, just reading. I merged onto the main road and set the cruise control. The car settled into a steady rhythm. My shoulders dropped a fraction, like they'd been waiting for permission. Silence, for me, had never been empty. It was operational. I'd learned that early. When to stop talking, when to stop explaining, when to stop hoping someone would finally hear the version of events I kept offering. Silence wasn't retreat. It was containment. I thought back to the screenshots one more time, not with anger, but with the calm of someone reviewing a checklist. Dates aligned, names matched, language consistent, third-party confirmation preserved, nothing vague, nothing editorialized. I'd printed them plainly. Black text on white paper, no commentary, no highlighting. Just facts laid out in order, the way systems prefer them. The note on top had been short. One sentence, no signature. I thought you deserved to know before you built anything permanent. That was it. No accusation, no demand. Just information delivered to the correct authority. The venue disappeared behind a curve in the road. Trees closed in on both sides, dark and orderly. I exhaled slowly, realizing my jaw had been clenched for hours without me noticing. My phone buzzed again, then again. I glanced down briefly at a red number climbing higher. Missed calls, messages stacking up. I flipped the phone face down in the cup holder. There was a time when that would have felt impossible, when not responding immediately would have sent me spiraling. What if they misunderstood? What if they were upset? What if I could fix it by explaining better? But explanations had never changed outcomes in that family. They'd only delayed them. Up ahead, the highway opened into a long, straight stretch. The lake was gone now, replaced by darkness and the faint outline of distant town lights. Somewhere behind me, staff would be moving quickly. Music would have stopped, voices lowered. Someone important would have taken control of the room. I trusted that part. The truth doesn't need supervision once it's released. It follows process. I pulled into a rest area and parked under a single overhead light. The engine idled softly. I sat there for a moment longer than necessary, letting the stillness recalibrate me. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Same calm face, a little paler, eyes steady. I sent one text. Not to my family, not to my sister. To myself, really. You did what you could. Now stop. Then I turned the phone off. Back on the road, the drive stretched out ahead of me, familiar and unremarkable. The kind of drive where your thoughts eventually quiet themselves, not because they've been resolved, but because they've been properly placed. By the time I crossed back into Massachusetts, the sky was beginning to lighten at the edges. Not sunrise yet, just the early shift from night to something else. My apartment lights were off when I arrived. I parked, locked the car, and stood for a second on the sidewalk, listening to the city breathe. Distant traffic, a train horn far away, someone laughing somewhere above me. Inside, I kicked off my shoes, hung my coat, and set my purse down on the counter. Only then did I turn my phone back on. It vibrated immediately in my hand. Messages, voicemails, missed calls from numbers I knew too well. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I poured a glass of water, took a slow sip, and leaned against the counter, letting the quiet do its work. Whatever was happening back at the lodge was no longer mine to manage. I had already stepped out of the system. Then I waited. I didn't hear about what happened right away. That came later, in fragments, stitched together from voicemails I didn't listen to and messages I didn't open. At the time, all I knew was the phone wouldn't stop vibrating, even after I'd set it face down on the counter. I let it buzz until it went quiet again. Then, sometime after sunrise, there was a knock at my door. Not loud, Not frantic, careful, like someone trying not to make things worse. I didn't rush to answer it. I rinsed my glass, set it in the drying rack, and walked over slowly. When I opened the door, my parents were standing in the hallway. My mother's coat was buttoned wrong. My father's eyes looked tired in a way I recognized. Neither of them smiled. "We need to talk," my mom said. I stepped aside and let them in. No argument, no commentary. They sat at my small kitchen table, the same one I used to work at every day. My mother clasped her hands together like she was bracing herself. My father stared at the surface of the table, tracing a scratch in the wood with his finger. "She didn't know," my mom said finally. "About the seating. That wasn't her decision." I nodded once. "Okay." My lack of reaction seemed to confuse her. She glanced up, searching my face for something. Anger, relief, permission. I didn't offer any of it. "Things got complicated," my father added, "after you left." "I heard," I said. That was true. I had heard the scream. Nothing more was necessary. My mother inhaled sharply. "Those messages," she said. "You should have come to us first." I met her gaze evenly. "Why?" The question hung there, unanswered. "She's your sister," my father said, quieter now. "Yes," I replied. "And that's exactly why I didn't handle it privately." They exchanged a look, the kind parents share when they're realizing a narrative no longer holds. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain my feelings. I didn't revisit the hallway, the table, or the words Sienna had used. I didn't need to. "What happens now?" my mother asked. "That's not up to me," I said. "It never was." She flinched slightly, like the sentence had landed somewhere tender. I stood up and cleared the space between us. "I'm not discussing this anymore, and I'm not available to manage the fallout." My father nodded slowly. For the first time, he looked directly at me. "That's fair." They left a few minutes later. No resolution, no apology, just a quiet understanding that something had shifted, and it wasn't shifting back. After they were gone, I wiped down the table and made coffee. I opened my laptop and looked at a map, not out of panic, but curiosity. Somewhere calm, somewhere unfamiliar. I booked a short trip without overthinking it. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't check it. I had already said everything I needed to say. Then I waited. The details settled in over the next few days, the way truth usually does, quietly and without asking permission. I didn't hear them directly. I didn't need to. People talk when something collapses in public. Stories move faster than explanations ever did in my family. The annulment paperwork had been filed before the end of the week. That part surprised everyone except me. When someone shows you exactly how they think, the response becomes procedural, not emotional. The messages were verified, the dates matched. The third party who forwarded them confirmed everything without drama. There were no accusations from me to refute, no narrative to dismantle, just records. Sienna didn't call. My mother did. Once. She left a voicemail I didn't listen to. I could tell from the length it was meant to repair something. I deleted it without opening it. My father sent a single text. I should have paid more attention. I didn't reply to that either. Accountability doesn't require an audience. A week later, I drove north. The town I chose was small, coastal, quiet, the kind of place where mornings arrive without urgency. I rented a simple place near the water and unpacked slowly, one item at a time, as if pace itself mattered. On my first morning there, I made tea and sat by the window while the fog lifted off the shoreline. No notifications, no plans. Just the sound of waves meeting rock at a steady, reasonable rhythm. I thought about the hallway again, not with anger, but clarity. How that moment had been framed as my place. How easily I'd accepted smaller space for so long because it was offered confidently. What changed wasn't the wedding. It was my refusal to stay seated where someone else decided I belonged. I walked along the water later that day, hands in my pockets, coat zipped against the wind. A woman I didn't know nodded at me in passing, No recognition, no history. It felt clean. When I returned to the rental, I organized my bag, folded my clothes, wiped down the counter. Ordinary tasks, grounding ones. That night, I slept deeply. Not because everything was resolved, but because nothing was chasing me anymore. Some things end loudly. Others end the moment you stop participating. I made peace with which one this was, and then I moved on. When I came back home, my apartment felt different. Nothing had changed physically. Same chair by the window, same plant I kept forgetting to water, same quiet hum from the street below. But the space felt owned in a way it hadn't before, like I'd finally arrived somewhere instead of passing through. I unpacked slowly, washed my mug, folded the dress I'd worn to the wedding, and placed it at the back of the closet. I didn't throw it away. It hadn't failed me. It had done its job. In the evenings, I started taking walks again. No headphones. Just the sound of my footsteps and the city settling into night. I noticed things I used to rush past. Lights turning off one by one. The smell of someone's dinner drifting through an open window. The rhythm of my own breathing when I wasn't bracing for impact. My phone stayed quiet most days. When it didn't, I chose carefully what I answered and what I didn't. Boundaries stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like maintenance. Something you do regularly so systems don't break down again. I didn't hear from my sister. That absence told me more than any apology could have. A few weeks later, a coworker pulled me aside after a meeting. She looked uncomfortable, hesitant. Then she said, "Can I ask you something kind of personal?" I nodded. She told me she'd been slowly cut out of her own family after years of being the easy one. The one who didn't complain. The one who understood. She didn't ask for advice. She just needed to say it out loud to someone who wouldn't rush to fix it. I listened. When she finished, I said one thing. "You're allowed to leave rooms that make you smaller." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. That's when I realized this story wasn't just about me. It never really was. It was about what happens when quiet people stop absorbing damage and start choosing placement. Most of the time, nothing explodes. No one claps. Life just reorganizes itself around truth instead of habit. And that's enough. If this story resonated with you, I'm glad you stayed with me until the end. If you found value here, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps this channel reach people who might need to hear stories like this one. I'd also love to know, what city are you watching from, and what time is it right now where you are? I read those comments more than you might think. 2 more popular stories are coming up next, and I hope you'll stay for them. Thank you for listening quietly with me.